Hello. Doing a video on kind of an autism amendment video, or autism addendament, I guess is a better word. Um, from the videos I've seen and the research I've done, the reason why Asperger's, ASD, high-functioning autism ends up being hard to diagnose or hard to kind of list symptoms for is because due to the basic nature of it, which is overloading our senses, sight, smell, hearing, touch, or being very sensitive, or being unable to adjust the volume of our peripheral senses, ends up not only making us distracted, appearing to be ADD, but also makes us kind of use a whole bunch of mental tricks, thought processes, changing our thought process to try to deal with the constant overwhelming input from our senses. And everybody, based on intelligence, cultural, familial surroundings, education, friends, surroundings, family, well, whatever, everybody tends, I think, to adjust in different ways. So the symptoms after this, the social awkwardness, the social idiosyncrasies, end up appearing in different ways in every different person. And I've watched a bunch of videos of people who specifically describe their idiosyncrasies, and a lot of them were things that I totally suffer from and agree with. To some extent, all of them, but some of them fit me completely, and some don't. So I thought I'd do a couple of videos, this one first, to kind of share how I think about things, how maybe autism has altered the way I think about things. No, I always thought it was due to intelligence, not due to autism, but it certainly could be a combination of both. And you know, I'm also very interested in communication, and why when I'm talking with someone, sometimes I'll understand them and they won't understand me, or they'll understand me and actually I don't think that ever happens. Very few people ever understand me. But sometimes we don't connect, and it's like we're having two different conversations and we're trying to interact but completely failing. And I've always wondered why. And sometimes I'll have a conversation with someone, and later they'll have a completely false impression of how that conversation went, and their summary of the conversation is completely inaccurate. And in fact, I've had that happen recently. It happens on an ongoing basis. So I've tried to figure out why that is, and this is the best I've come up with. So there. Does that explain it to everyone? No, I need to go into more detail. Let's say this is an idea or a concept of mine or a belief. Most people, I think, are pretty good at describing their belief. I'm not able to do that. I am not able to describe this as, I mean, right now I'm able to describe it. It's a black oval on a whiteboard. But let's say the belief is government. Most people can say, I believe in this, I believe in that, I believe in this. I'm totally unable to do that. I don't think that I'm familiar with about 15 or 20 forms of government, depending on how detailed you want to get. If you want to stay general, you got communism, tyranny, anarchy, democracy, oligarchy, monarchy. What am I missing? I'm missing a few. Republics, you know, and all of those have sub-permutations of them. But dictatorship, benevolent dictatorship, representative democracy, direct democracy, representative, we were a monarchy somehow. Representative monarchy? Democratic monarchy? I can't remember. Anyway. To me, the way I think about things like that, and the way I think about everything in life, is I don't think you can pick one over the others. I think all of them, religions kind of go the same way. But any question you ask me, I don't think there's a representative answer. Like if you ask me what my favorite form of government is, it is not any one form of those governments. What it tends to be is, oh, I should do this in another color. Doing this a little differently this time. So let's say the purple circles are every form of government that I'm aware of. What tends to happen is I didn't really represent this very well, but there are parts of every government that I don't agree with and dislike, and there are parts of every government that I agree with and think are great. And I don't think we've discovered a form of government that's actually, if government is indeed necessary and good and important, we haven't figured it out yet. We're still in the process of trying to evolve government, hopefully using scientific methods by picking aspects of government that are good and building on that. So what I end up doing, and now good luck trying to describe that in simple terms to someone. There's just no way to do that. And I actually didn't represent it very well because I have some of these purple circles completely encircled in my beliefs, and there's no form of government that does not have its flaws and its weaknesses. So there's not any, I wouldn't really have any bubble. These are far more representative of my thoughts, and likely with any form of government, the majority of it is not inside my beliefs. It's not inside what I think works. It's not inside what I think is a good form of government. Most of it is probably outside. This is probably a little more representative, where I agree with a little bit of this form of government, but most of it I disagree with. So the problem I have in trying to describe this in simple terms is when I get in a conversation with someone and I say, oh, dictatorships are great, they'll say, what, are you crazy? And so I'll take this one little form and I'm pretty sure everybody does this, but for some reason when I do it, people just don't understand what I'm doing. What I'll do is I'll take the parts of that, of a dictatorship, and I'll say dictatorships are great because blah, 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 blah. And this might be a little bit within the realm of reason, but I take it to further and further extremes until the person who, let's say the amount of dictatorship that I agreed with was this much of my original belief. When I start defending that and saying, no, dictatorship's great because of this and this and this, and if you do this, then this can happen and this can happen. It cuts through red tape, you get more stuff done. The leader of the country can actually affect meaningful, quick change within the country, blah, 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 blah. There's all kinds of good reasons why dictatorships are great. And then the person leaves the discussion thinking that I want to be a dictator, or think dictators are great, or think we should support dictatorships, or set up dictatorships, or whatever. Whereas, in fact, I was only describing and defending 5% of my overall belief on what's good about government. And then I might have another the hilarious thing about this is I'll have a conversation with someone else about, let's say, communism. And again, I'll do the same thing. Somehow they'll mention communism, and I'll say, no, there's nothing wrong with communism. Communism works because of this and this and this. It's all great things. And people continually tell me that communism doesn't work, or in the States they believe this, because the Soviet Union fell. First of all, the Soviet Union was the most powerful communist state, powerful state in the world for what? 40 years? 35 years? And yeah, it had its problems, but it definitely was able to keep the Americans in check for a certain amount of time. So it definitely developed strength and did good in the Olympics, did good in, were able to build up their war power, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that communism did great. My second argument is, who's to say that's the proper way to set up communism? If I'm not mistaken, as soon as Lenin took over, it kind of became a blend of communism and communism and dictatorship. It became more of a dictatorial communist state rather than a pure communism. Maybe if you mix communism with democracy, or communism with oligarchy, or communism with monarchy, maybe you'll get into a better form of government that will work more fully. Also, the Soviet Union was a huge state. Good luck trying to develop a form of government that works ideally for that huge estate. Anyway, I'm not defending, again, you're probably of the opinion now that I think communism is great and I'm defending communism, but there are small aspects of communism that I think are good, that would be a good form of government. The rest of it is not. I'm just taking it to its logical conclusion. And that's kind of how I view every little part of this. I keep everything in little parts and parcels, which gets people totally misunderstanding my... I have no paper. I guess I could use my shirt. It gets people totally misunderstanding my actual, what this black line was. You completely lose sight of what my actual belief system is and what my actual belief system is comprised of. And it's impossible for me to explain, except the way I just did, that it's made up of a whole bunch of little things, good things from a whole bunch of little things, each of which might appear a little crazy, but it has to be balanced by the other ones. And so I end up with a lot of conversations with people where they end up feeling that my impression of something is crazy. And the only two topics that I can really say that happens regularly in is government and religion. But I'm sure it happens with me in skating and skating technique. I'm kind of the opinion that all skating techniques are crap and all skating techniques are amazing. And I am simultaneously of both opinions. Now, I heard another aspect of this, which I heard recently, or not recently, a while ago from a friend of mine. I think they were quoting Nietzsche. And Nietzsche apparently has a line in one of his treatises, papers, books, whatever you call philosophers' writings, where he says that a true genius or somebody who's reasonably smart or very smart will simultaneously embody opposite ideas. So the ideas of fascism and communism, which are completely opposite, geniuses can believe totally in fascism and totally in communism at the same time and not have them conflict. Same thing, you can believe that religion is one of the worst things that's ever happened to humanity and is a terrible aspect of society, almost a germ or a virus. And religion is great. It's produced some of the greatest foundations of our culture, some of the greatest ages of enlightenment and science and learning. And many religious people that I know are open-minded and intelligent and kind-hearted, and and I can simultaneously embody those two separate things. Now, again, at any given time, if somebody tells me religion's wonderful, I guess it's my nature to say yes, but it's also terrible. And if somebody comes to me and says religion is crap and everybody who's religious is a nutbag, my immediate reaction is yes, but what about this? And it's not, people seem to think I should be or I guess most people have either an indeterminate opinion or a compromise position or something like that. I don't compromise at all. I fully believe in both extremes simultaneously. And that goes with virtually, it doesn't go with every topic that comes to me. There are some things that I think are wrong and some things that I think are right, but I think it confuses people a lot because I can very easily hold a conversation on one side or on the other side, or wavering between the two, or in the middle, or somewhere off the scale somewhere, and people will leave the conversation thinking that it was just a nutbag conversation, and they're missing the entire context. In order to get the entire context, you'd have to, almost take up the opposite position and have me argue the opposite position or something along those lines. In skating terms, and for those who are watching this who aren't my normal audience, I coach skating, so most of this is supposed to relate to skating somehow. I'm very anti-clinics. I go to clinics, I think they're great and I learn something, but I think there are too many coaches that are way too pro-clinic and feel they can become a good coach by going to clinics, which is a completely false and erroneous statement. You cannot become a good coach by going to clinics. It's a very small part of how you become a good coach. And I had a couple people explain to me when, often if you go to a clinic and you can take it out of context. It gives you one part of a picture, or it gives you a part of a technique, or it gives you a part of a development. And in order to fully understand that coach's perspective, you have to follow that coach around to several different clinics to get a more well-rounded impression of how they mean that. which most coaches don't do. Most coaches go to, pretty isolated clinics, and then they kind of form an opinion based on the limited amount of information they heard from that coach. Do I think this coach is completely nuts and wrong about everything? Do I think their technique is off the wall and stupid, and I will never encourage it? Or sometimes the opposite. Do I think this is the most amazing coach ever? And I'm going to go home and suddenly try to change all my kids' technique to what I learned at this clinic. And both of those approaches are wrong, but both of those approaches are right. And it becomes very confusing trying to explain that to people. I had a board meeting recently with a club where I tried to venture into the point of clinics and the approach coaches should have to clinics. And I know from the looks of people's faces and the arguments I got that nobody understood anything that I was saying. In fact, that afterwards I talked to somebody who thought that I was saying that no kids and no coaches should ever go to clinics, that clinics are a terrible idea for development. And they can be a terrible idea for development, but they can also be an incredible idea. In fact, they can be the linchpin in a development plan. So again, good luck trying to understand me and understand that. Now, my friends of a long time don't tend to, or people who've known me for a long time don't tend to, they think I'm joking when I go off on a tangent. I'm not joking, and I'm not trying to be contrary. I'm just saying, you believe this, let me present this, so you have a more overall perspective of the world. Now, most people aren't interested in a perspective of the world. They're interested in their little opinion. They're not interested in seeing other people's opinions. They're not interested in understanding other people's opinions. They generally will label other people's opinions as crazy. And they'll label me as crazy, especially since I generally try to go in the opposite corner from what their opinion is. Just to try to broaden their minds and open their perspectives. I totally agree with them, but I also agree with everything else, and I don't think their opinion isolated is the be-all and end-all of whatever topic that is. I think there are always other impressions, other information to get. That was way too long. Anyway, hopefully that's kind of my idea of how I deal with autism, is I don't, and it may be part of the fact that the ADD makes me switch attention to different things so many times, as far as, hearing, listening, seeing, tasting, etc., etc. I think that's it. Hopefully that gives people some insight into possible future crazy conversations they'll have with me.